Okay.
I can see you're busting to tell me what's this one thing. Thank you for talking with me again. Yeah, you're busting. Bursting. Stuart, you have something, some of your goals you've been talking about recently. Is it related to this thing that you'd like to tell me to that?
Well, it sort of is like the big question now throughout the world is, how do we enable meaningful change? And that's usually seen as something that's sort of out there, but actually enabling, the first steps to enabling meaningful change start inside of each of us. And so psychologically, if you see us as a sort of, as a circle, you know, we start out as a circle. And what happens in our experience is, just as you said, you know, you had some challenges and I got scarlet fever and, you know, various other things. And we have other challenging experiences. And in some ways, they impact on that circle and damage it in a sense. And to survive, we have to develop actually what are best understood as other selves to survive those things. Like, for example, if a child is hit over the head repeatedly, they develop a self that can duck and get out of the way. So that's not their whole self, that's just a part of them, you know, another self. So we're all made up of multiple selves. So we've got these adaptive selves that have enabled us to survive, but we've still got the essence of the circle, which is in a sense the core self that is undamaged and is fully empowered and fully aware and clear about visions and values and all sorts of things like that. So in terms of enabling change, first of all, one has to tune into that part of oneself and become familiar with it and let go of adaptive selves, which, although they were helpful for survival, they're a noose around our necks, is because they express themselves as pattern behaviors. Like ducking is a pattern behavior. And what healthy behavior is never patterned. It's always spontaneous, tuned into the moment. So when you're working with other people to work on change, or working with other people as a teacher, the only meaningful learning that can take place is between your core self and the core self of the learner, or the collaboration is between your core self and the core self of the people you're collaborating with. And that's a skill that is the most important thing to develop and the most important thing to test any efforts that we're making. It's not whether this technique is good or this technology is good. It's actually to what extent is what's going on between the core self of the people involved, or core selves of the people involved. And that's a big, big, big challenge. And it's something that's generally neglected. So most teaching is communication between adaptive selves and other adaptive selves. And that's why I say a really important thing is listening and asking questions, because it's a lot easier to listen to somebody else's core self and to ask to hear from that core self than it is to know what to say, because so much of what we say comes out of our pattern self.
Especially in a recording. So many things going on, I think.
Well, I think when you're coming out of your core self in spontaneously, you actually are, quite often are doing things that are a surprise to you and a surprise to the other person. So for example, when we said we would have a conversation, I didn't have a script that I was going to follow. And so anything that happens between us now is spontaneous.
Yes.
And so it's been interesting for me. I'm still thinking about you saying, you know, you had some early challenges in your life, and I'm still thinking about those. And I actually, you know, would love to ask you lots of questions about those, probably not so relevant for the teaching. But there's a piece of me that is feeling very caring and loving and empathetic.
That's
and
sweet.
I just feel a bit teary as I say that.
Yeah, because you are caring, and well, you've seen me over a few decades now. But the truth is, when I've been doing my permaculture, it hasn't been to teach.
No.
I've been doing it because I thought I could make a better lifestyle for myself and my family and my extended community, whether they wanted it or not. It's quite warming actually to see that as I've gotten older, the way they treat me, that I'm still that crazy woman.
Yeah.
But I think some young people are going, maybe she's got something there. And that's been great. I think it would have been harder if it had got harder and harder being in a community that became more and more resistant to change.
Right. Well, that's why it's really important to work on what I called small, meaningful initiatives we can guarantee to carry through to completion, not Olympic events.
Yes.
And another spontaneous thought here is that to practice the phrase, I'm April and you're pleased to meet me.
I love it. But you don't look like me. Yes, but I'm a woman, and so that's even more difficult to say that. I would love to be able to say that. I'm April, and you're pleased to see, or you're pleased to meet me. Yeah,
I've been very pleased to meet you. I've been absolutely delighted to meet you.
Yeah, me too.
And you are beyond any expectation I could have imagined to have.
Oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. When I started out, I was so optimistic and so naive and so hopeful. Well, actually, my parents were very strongly political, and that didn't seem to be working. It didn't seem to help because I'm in a very, my region is very strongly Labour, and it was like banging their heads against a brick wall. So I thought, well, that's pointless. Thanks, Mum, and thanks, Dad, but I'm not doing that. So I found it was easier to enable change on my own. And to me, that was you had to be brave, but you had the absolute freedom to make mistakes. You didn't have someone pointing out, I told you so.
Yeah.
And some of the mistakes I made was sharing my successes. There was a little bit of backlash there. Some people would say, "Oh, that won't grow," like jackfruit, the jackfruit. That's never going to grow here. I was like, "Oh, thanks." And then they'd say, "All right, it's growing, but it'll never fruit." Oh, thanks. It's a bit of a tall poppy thing, I think, in Australia that has
It's
not
a big
helped.
issue.
And that
It
made
is a
me more
big,
and more reclusive. I became more reclusive because it wasn't that I was selfishly not wanting to share, but I wanted the freedom to make mistakes,
right.
and only with things that wouldn't cry. Like,
There's a great story about this from India, where a person was wanting to introduce an improved variety of wheat. And he went around to all the people and gave them a bag of wheat, you know, the improved wheat seeds. And none of them planted any of it. They thought he had poisoned it to disadvantage them. So he bought some land and he grew this variety of wheat. And in the night, they all came and stole the
oops, I
grain.
lost. And they
Because
stole the.
they could see it was good, you know,
Yeah.
and it wasn't poisoned or anything. And so, you know, there's a great lesson in that, in how we communicate. So I used to run workshops for leaders, and part of the challenge was how to be a leader while being anonymous. And what helps being anonymous is if you work with a large group of people over a long time frame, taking indirect, complex strategies, so that none of it can be, there's this hero who did this single thing which gave us a quick result. So everything with effective leadership was the opposite of that. So there's a lot of those sort of things are important lessons. Even you could say that's wisdom.
Yes. So I'd like to ask you one more question. I'll stop this one, and I'd like to learn more about that leadership.